Hi, my name is Azadeh Tamjeedi. I'm a protection officer with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR, here in Vancouver. The UNHCR is an international organization that is mandated to assist and protect refugees, asylum seekers, stateless people, and internally displaced people. So we're there to serve people that fall under those definitions. Our work internationally is a little different than our work here in Canada. Internationally, it depends on what the country that we're operating in allows us to do. So in some countries, such as Kenya, we would take on the role of determining who is a refugee and registering refugees, and also providing services such as food, shelter, basic necessities, and things like education. In Canada, that role is largely taken on by the government of Canada. So the government of Canada takes on the work of determining who is a refugee when someone comes here to claim asylum. So what we do here in Canada is observe the system and ensure that it's in line with international standards. We also consult with the government and various stakeholders, such as non-governmental organizations, on the current system in Canada, and provide feedback on things that we think could be improved or things that we think could be changed a little. And we also provide information and advocacy points to the general Canadian public and to asylum seekers. We also assist in resettlement of refugees from overseas to Canada. So we do have offices in Ottawa where our resettlement workers are located, and offices internationally. So One Canada is trying to resettle refugees from, let's say, Lebanon or Jordan. They would take from the UNHCR list of registered refugees for the government-assisted refugees and resettle them to Canada. So we would assist with that process of processing the application and referring to the government of Canada for resettlement. Once the resettled refugees are here, we usually don't touch the file after that. They gain assistance by the settlement agencies here in Canada. Worldwide, we're seeing about 65 million forcibly displaced people. Out of that 65 million, there are approximately 22.5 million refugees worldwide. The UNHCR takes on the responsibility of registering and determining whether out of that 22.5 million refugees, there are people who are particularly vulnerable and in need of resettlement elsewhere in the world in order to survive. That means that they can't survive in their first country of asylum, such as Syrians who are finding themselves in Lebanon or in Jordan, and they have some kind of vulnerability that makes them unable to survive for a long term in those places. So out of the 22.5 million refugees worldwide, UNHCR has identified 1.2 million that need resettlement. Out of that 1.2 million, we're only able to resettle less than 10% to other countries like Canada and the US. The issues that asylum seekers are facing are waiting longer for your asylum claim to be processed. So it used to be once you come to Canada and make your asylum claim, you generally would wait 60 days to have a hearing. Now, because of the increase in asylum claims, we are seeing people waiting about 18 months to have a hearing of their asylum claim and get a decision on whether or not they're a refugee and are allowed to stay in Canada. So one of the biggest questions that we often get is, when is my hearing? Why has it been postponed? And can it be a lot faster? Can I get a faster date? And it's harder to address those questions because a lot of it has to do with the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada and the number of claims that they do get, and if they're able to schedule your hearing. Now they're doing a process where it's first come, first served, so they're trying to schedule the people who first made their claim first, and then process the other claims in a chronological fashion. So if someone arrived in 2012 and still hasn't had a hearing, they will be scheduled before someone who's arriving now. So unfortunately, the wait times have increased a little, but while you're waiting, you still get access to the basic services, which is social assistance. You can apply for a work permit, and you could get help to find housing. And housing is another difficulty that people are finding. They're having trouble finding a space or an apartment where they could reside. And particularly in bigger cities, that's a bit harder in places such as Vancouver. So these are kind of issues that we're consulting with the government about, and we're talking to them about what we're seeing in Canada as the major barriers for asylum seekers.